without a shadow of a doubt that you're created on purpose for a purpose. Mindset and money revolution. You have to have a mindset revolution to experience a money revolution. That's when you experience a true wealth revolution.
My name is Chad Free. Welcome to the Wealth Revolution Podcast.
Welcome back to the Wealth Revolution Podcast. I am your host, Chad Free, and I'm a wealth strategist. And I believe that true wealth is an abundance of everything you value. And I believe true wealth is built from the inside out. And if I have to be honest with you, I believe today could possibly be the most powerful podcast that I've done thus far, because I have a story for you, how God used my natural and put his super on it just because I made myself available. And it's crazy. It has nothing to do with me. All right. But just again, making myself available. So before we get started, I have came across a huge quote that I believe earns or lends credibility to my mission and what we do as far as helping people with their money. All right. So in 1922, Henry Ford made this statement. Got to put my glasses on to read here. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. That was in 1922. So what's changed since then? Absolutely nothing. And that's why we help people not only chase rates of return and try to beat the market, we actually help them reduce taxes and reduce their debt just by redirecting and repositioning. So I thought that was a very, very cool quote. And how cool is it that it used the word revolution? So anyway, be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast, and you'll want to make sure that you've shared this one to a friend. All right, so let's get started with the story. So as you can see, the title, the Holy Spirit used my Harley, believe it or not. And I'd like to just ask that you stay with me, because every single point that I talk about will all make sense, and it'll be pulled together at the very end. Last week, I went to the chiropractor on my Harley, and I just got a new sound system on there, and so I'm enjoying the tunes. And then right after the chiropractor, I went over and I got my wife some salmon that we were going to grill out that night. And on my way home, I started listening to praise and worship music. All right. And so I was the obnoxious person that was at the red light, and I literally turned it up because I got so in tune with worship. I got so in tune with just praising God, and I was unashamed of it. And that's a sight you don't see a lot. Somebody going down the road on a good looking Harley, by the way, and had music playing, and people were like, oh man, we sing that in church on Sunday mornings. So I was just having a good time. Now, I have had a Harley since 1998. So getting on a Harley and running errands is no big deal for me. From the outside looking in, people say, oh, riding motorcycles, everybody's got their opinion, but it's about that freedom. It's about the wind blowing in your face and in your hair and all that. Well, I haven't had one of those kind of rides in a long time. Maybe it's because I hadn't really gone on any kind of long trip to enjoy that. But again, for some reason, I was truly experiencing worship on my bike, and I was taking it all in. I was enjoying the time with the wind blowing through my hair and what hair I have and my face and all that. So as I'm headed home with this salmon in the saddlebag, right, I began to think, I don't have any more appointments. So it would be really nice to continue to ride. and listen to this music and just, continue worshiping. Well, it started out as a thought, and as I got closer to the house, it almost became a suggestion. Now, I don't know where this is coming from. Sometimes, you think of this on your own, but then eventually you realize that God's probably tugging at you to do something. So it became kind of a hybrid. Maybe it was a suggestion from God. Maybe it was just my thoughts, whatever. But it was a pretty firm suggestion. So I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll do that. Got to get this salmon in the house because I don't want it stinking, my saddlebag and all that stuff. So I get to the house. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. Again, no appointments or anything. I walk in and I take my shoes off after I put salmon in the refrigerator, and I sit down and I started petting the dogs, and I got comfortable for a split moment. And then something stirred inside of me, like, let's go for a ride. We're going to go spend some time together. None of this is audible, mind you, but it was a strong indication that God had something for me. Maybe it was going to reveal something to me. I don't know. But I didn't sit on that couch long after I felt that in my spirit. So I got up. Okay, let's go. So then comes the question. I've agreed to it. Then comes the question. We want to know right now, what's next? What's next? So my question is, okay, where am I going? Where am I going to ride to? Do I make a left out of my neighborhood? Do I make a right out of my community? And where am I going? And so I know you probably just listen, just go for a ride. Well, you can go for a ride this way or you can go for a ride that way, right? So I'm like, which way am I going? Well, out of left field, I live just south of Greenville in Fountain Inn. I'm out in the country. And out of the blue, Lake Greenwood just hit me. Bam, out of left field. I don't know where that came from. And so immediately I'm like, well, I'm not going to Lake Greenwood. I'm not going that far. That's like a 45-minute drive. All right. Actual Greenwood, where the lake is. So right after that, I remembered just down the road, about 28 minutes, less than 30 minutes, there's a little place on Lake Greenwood. And that place just came to my mind. There's a bridge that crosses Lake Greenwood, and immediately I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I'll go down there. That will be a good ride. And so off I go. And I'm headed that direction. And of course, I've got my music playing, and I'm being very, very open-minded and with my heart. And, is God going to reveal something to me? Is he going to download something to me? What am I doing? I'm just very open, okay? And I'm enjoying this ride. Well, I start headed down that way, and some friends of ours live right there near that spot that I was speaking of. And so I felt this urge and this, I guess he was telling me, go there. Okay. For what? Right? We want to know for what? What's the reason? So I'm continuing to head down that direction, and I'm going through my mind. Okay, what am I supposed to do here? What am I saying? What am I going to do? Do I stop? Yeah. Okay, so I'm stopping there, and basically we have some friends, and then the lady that lives there, her parents are there, which we adore as well. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop. And what am I going to say? If this is a mission, what am I saying? If this is, and then I just like, well, maybe God's just trying to see if I'm being obedient and just go in that direction. So I keep riding. And then all of a sudden it comes to mind that I'm going to see the guy, the man, right? And for me to talk to him. Okay, well, what if he's not there? We'll say hey to the grandparents. Okay. Well, I continue to ride. In less than 10 minutes away from their home, very clearly, I want you to tell him, this wasn't audible, but it was clear. I love him and I got him. I love him and I got him. Not me telling him I love him, but God wanting me to tell him that God loves you and he's got you. Now, put yourself in that situation. What in the world? How is he going to respond? What is he going to say? How's this going to shake out? I'm telling you, it was very clear. Now, let me hit the rewind button for just a moment. 3 weeks before this moment, my wife and I were invited down with just a few of their closest family and friends, and he actually got baptized in his swimming pool, and we were there for that. My wife gave me a cross, a little wooden cross that you can put in your pocket, you can put wherever, and said, hey, why don't you give this to John as a gift, for being baptized? I'm like, well, that's cool. So that's what I did. I gave him the gift. He was so appreciative. You could tell it really meant a lot to him. And so that was a great suggestion by my wife. All right. So back to the mission. When I heard or understood and got that very clear mission that God wanted me to tell him that he loved him and that he's got him, I got very serious in prayer. I didn't close my eyes on the bike, don't worry. But I didn't want this to be about me. I didn't want this to be something that Chad has strummed up in his mind or heart to sound good, to make him feel good or whatever. I didn't want this to be anything about me, because it was so clear that God had me on this mission that I was approaching this very reverently and fearfully, but yet obedient. And so I asked God, I said, I don't want this to have anything to do with me. And I prayed that the enemy wouldn't put voices in my mind and all of that. And I didn't want any kind of confusion. So I said, now God, again, what do you want me to say? And as clear cut as it could be, I love him and I got him. Done deal. So I get to their driveway and I pull in, and I didn't want to alarm him, so I called him on the phone first, and I got his voicemail. As I approached his door, I went to knock on it. The door opened. His brother was there, and he said, I'm sorry, he has stepped out, and I'm not sure when he's going to be back. And I'm like, well, I'm Chad. I met you the other week at the baptism. Yeah, I know exactly who you are. Well, do you want me to give him a message? And I'm like, well, do I tell him? Is that a seed that's being planted? And I'm like, well, you know what? It's kind of weird. No, I'm not weird, but this is kind of weird. I said, I was riding a motorcycle up in Simpsonville, listening to praise and worship music. And then all of a sudden I felt led to continue to ride. And I really felt like God led me down here just to talk to John. And maybe it was just seeing if I was going to be obedient in doing that. Well, his brother was very respectable and said, wow, okay, cool. Well, I'll tell him you stopped by and I'll tell him. I'm like, well, don't tell him that. You can tell him or ask him if he's seen me or spoke to me, but I want to share this with him. So off I go back to my house on the motorcycle. And as soon as I get home, I text him and I asked him to give me a call, and he called me immediately. And I asked him, I said, do you have a moment for me to speak to you? Because this is crazy. And I began to tell him everything that I just said on this podcast, line by line, and how this was slowly revealed, not the whole thing, but little bit at a time, God was giving me this vision and this mission. And when I was done, I said, he just wanted me to tell you that he loves you and that he's got you. Well, on the other side and on the other line, I heard someone getting very emotional. And he begins to share with me how much that cross and that gift meant to him. And that it was a super special gift. And he appreciated it more than I would ever know. And that he never went, in the short period of time, he hasn't gone anywhere without it being in his pocket. But something happened just a few days prior to that. And he was getting in or out of his boat. And he got up to his house and he felt for his pockets, and that cross was no longer there. And he panicked. And he said, Chad, I've searched hours in our backyard and I can't find this cross. He then began to tell me that he has been avoiding me at all costs. He has been dreading the time that our paths cross, and that he didn't want to tell me this, that he lost the very gift that I gave him. Now, pause. I'm over here thinking this is no big deal. I can get him another cross. Things like that's going to happen. But he was truly, deeply upset about this and convicted about it. And so I just listened to him. And I'm like, man, it's okay. And thankfully, I didn't interrupt him, because he then began to tell me, Chad, I've just started having these doubts, and I've started being unsure of the worthiness of me even being baptized. And I just hate that I lost that cross, man, and it's just been terrible. And am I even worthy? And it was at that moment that the full download came inside of me. And I immediately said, whoa, John. That's exactly what I said. I said, stop. I said, now I know. And my voice began to shake. And I became super, super emotional. Because I told him, I said, listen to me right now. I said, that cross in your pocket, it's a token. It's something nice, a gift, something that you can help you to remember, who's on your side and all that. But let me tell you something, that cross is replaceable. And that cross right there, that has nothing to do with what has been sealed and solidified inside your heart and your relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is all you need. And you need not to ever let the enemy put doubts in your mind that you are not a child of God and that you are not worthy. We all are not worthy, but that's what grace is for. And that's the reason Jesus came and died for our sins. So if we choose to have a relationship with him, all we have to do is ask him to come into our life and to become Lord of our life and to repent. And I could barely keep talking, because these words came out before I even knew what I was saying. And I said, I'm so sorry for getting emotional here. And now he said, man, I'm bawling. He can't even get it out. So here's the deal. The very person that he was running from and trying to avoid over here and hating that the next time that our paths crossed, it's the same person that God was calling on and was going to use as a tool and a vessel to bring us together and give him the word that he loves you and he's got you. And it has nothing to do with a little wooden cross in your pocket, but it has everything to do with your relationship with Christ. Now, I've told that story about 6 times now. And this is probably the 3rd time that I've said it without getting so emotional. And it wasn't being emotional because I was sad or I was happy. It was emotional because I experienced the magnitude and the greatness of God. And the fact that he chose me because I was willing to be used by him. That was internal profit that you can't put a price tag on. I was on cloud 9 for a long time and still am when I tell that story. And I believe that that story needs to be shared when we have those kind of experiences. And that's all, I probably can see his hand working all around me, but sometimes I don't slow down enough to recognize it. But in this moment, I decided that I made a decision that I wanted to spend time with him. I made a decision that I wanted to praise and worship him. And I got into the presence of God. And I had emptied myself out so he could use me and fill me up. This has nothing to do with Chad, but everything to do with who God is. And I'm just telling you, sometimes we make ourselves stay so busy that we're not just being still. We become a human doing when we are truly human beings. And when we just stop and put our focus on him, I believe that's when he will start revealing his purpose for you in your life. That's when he will start, you'll start seeing his hand at work in your life. You will start experiencing that abundance in being present and living on purpose for a purpose. You see, this gentleman told me as he was barely trying to get it out, he was thanking me of our friendship. He was telling me how much he loved me. And he said, this right here is forever going to be a part of my story that is still being written. You see, when you first accept Christ and you start this journey, the enemy don't like that. Remember what I said before, if he can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. And if he can't, destroy you, he'll distract you. Hey, God is not the author of confusion. And see, that is what he was experiencing, confusion. And very clearly, he had that be pressed upon me to go and tell him the very thing that he was struggling with. Now, I forgot one little point that I want to share. But all things work together for the good. My son had sent me a video just the night before, but I didn't see it until that morning. And it was a video of a gentleman approaching another gentleman on the street, and he had this big long cross on, and it was a necklace, and it had the cross on it. He said, "Excuse me, why? Can you tell me the symbolism behind that necklace? Why do you wear it?" He said, "I wear it for protection." And that gentleman began to tell him how God living inside your heart is all the protection that you need. And I'm not saying anything bad about crosses. I'm not saying anything bad about any of that, because they are truly symbols. But the power is not in that. The power is in who lives inside of you. So me seeing that video and literally understanding that, and when he immediately told me that he started doubting himself, I reverted back to that video right there, and it hit me so hard. See, God equipped me. And literally, I just started talking, and God gave me the words to say. So that's no coincidence, guys. That right there is truly God's hand at work and being able to experience God in a way that I'm so grateful that I was obedient to. So I would challenge you to spend time with Him. Spend time with God. Pray, but then be still. Let Him talk back to you. Just be still. Be still for 10, 15. I know that's hard to do. But I do believe that if you are seeking Him and you are truly wanting to hear a word from God, I believe that He will share that with you. I believe that He will reveal something to you in your life. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, there is nothing like being used by God. And I had to get comfortable being uncomfortable. But that's what it takes to being obedient to what God is leading you to do. And there is something about that peace that passes all understanding, knowing who's got you. So, hey guys, share this. If this touched you, I would love for you to leave a comment. I would love for you to share it with somebody that needs to hear that. It's all about your relationship with God. And you can't do anything to ever deserve that. It's a free gift, but it's your choice. Do you decide to have a relationship with Him and ask Him to come into your heart and be the Lord of your life? So, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, God bless you. And you are created on purpose for a purpose. God bless you.